The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it.
Why do you see this specific clip and the full introduction of Lord of the Rings everywhere in media? Why has Lord of the Rings gotten so much Oscars? I have to be explained to you the reason why and giving examples, alongside the signs of introductions for movies in general. What makes introductions so important? Well, it's simplified. The introduction is supposed to tell the whole story, and today I'll be explaining why. To create a fascinating story, the introduction is so important. So these are the 5 main details you have to consider to create an amazing introduction. The 5 are world building, structure, 2 hooks, introduction of characters, and the 5th one is an impactful, either a battle or an event. The main most important detail is the structure. It follows 3 sets: the setup, the confrontation, and the resolution. Without this structure, the whole system falls apart. Let me give you an example. Lord of the Rings, which I'll be using for the rest of the details too. It began with the forging of the power rings. 3 to the elves, 7 to the dwarves, and 9 to the humans. And the importance is described later on in the opening. Then we're introduced to a main villain, the Dark King, Sauron, and the individual that has a ring to rule them all. And then we figured out that there was a final war between the humans and elves, and then against Sauron and the orcs. One of the humans, the king, son, actually was the one to remove the ring from Sauron by cutting off his fingers. And then now Sauron gone from physical to spiritual. So he's disappeared from now. And the possibility of destroying the ring by putting it into lava, the human mind decided to take it for themselves and use its power, which at the end was a horrible idea, because some orcs that were fighting alongside Sauron in the battle attacked the humans, and the ring that was on the human's necklace was thrown away and lost until later on into the story. Let's start with the world building, because that's the one of the more important aspects of the story or the introduction. It's not like, of course, it's not going to be complex. It's going to be the bare minimum and the basic fundamental world building, but it's going to be very important for later on in the story. As the Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has an info dump at the beginning of the first movie. But let's just talk about it slowly. First of all, about the idea of the rings themselves, the power to rule their nations individually. And then you got the one ring by Sauron that controls the other rings. In the result, causes the destruction of Middle Earth because of humanity's greed and ego being forced out by this ring, and Sauron spiritually controlling them through a system that will be described later on. You got each of the specific races with their own unique armor designs, how they look, their hair, their weapons. There's every small detail that just builds this whole world up and all of these characters up and ideas up together. But it's important because we understand the main conflict, what caused the war that happens later on in the introduction, which is important because there's 2 races that are faced in the war. You got the elves and you got the humans. The arrogant humans, the arrogant and selfish humans, and then the fair and intelligent elves. The way that the elves fight is very cool. Like, for us wondering, like there's some sort of like technique that they use, and then there's like a precision and everything like that. It was just so cool looking in general. I just wanted to say that. But like, the final battle, the final war between Sauron and the 2 races, resulting in, of course, the son of the king cutting off the fingers of Sauron, resulting in the ring separating from Sauron. And then we get the first important detail, which is after the ring separates, Sauron just disappears from this physical world and moves into this more of the spiritual world, which is described later on in the movies. I'm not going to talk about that specifically. And then later on, the rings controlling the arrogant humans, the selfish humans, because their ego is too far ahead, and they took the ring for themselves, and of course probably try to use it for their own nation, or of course because the rings have controlled by Sauron, they might get tricked and stuff like that to follow something that the Sauron has kind of created in self, because of the idea that he might have already predicted that he could have lost. So this ring could be like a method after his death to come back and to regain his forces back in general. And of course the orcs finding the ring and then killing off the humans, the individual putting the ring on, going invincible. An important idea is that when the Son of the King put on his ring, the orcs kind of detected him in the water, which doesn't make sense, but of course that's an important idea that's built on later on in the story. The tone of the world itself, because we know that the world is dark, the people are evil, people controlled by Sauron. They'll do anything they want. They destroy their villages and their nations. Because of that one ring, we have the power system of the Lord of the Rings, and everything just kind of expands on itself and full on builds the foundation of the structure, later on expanded on by the rest of the movies and the rest of the trilogy itself. The next part I want to talk about are the two important hooks. First one for either the first movie, the first chapter, whatever media you're talking about, just the first part of the full entire series. Second one is the ending or the complete hook, the final goal of the whole series in general. For Lord of the Rings specifically, the first hook is the idea of resisting the ring and also trying to escape from the orc army. The second hook is the idea of bringing the ring to the Mount Doom and throwing it into lava and completely destroying it and removing Sauron from this reality and making sure that humanity is saved, Middle-earth is protected and everything like that. For the second final point or detail that I want to tackle before I give you full explanation is the idea of the introduction of characters. There wasn't much characters introduced, they were just races in general. There was the elves, the dwarves, and the humans. The dwarves being the craftsmen and being the one that, the ones that live in mountains and everything like that. Humans being arrogant, which is important later on. That'll be very important because later on we get the idea of the kings and everything like that. And then the elves, which are the fairest, more intelligent, more the magical entities. But those are just a complete race structure. We did get one character, Isidore, the son of the king, whom cut the hands off of Sauron and was the one that took the ring for himself. And also the inclusion of the dark forces with the Dark Lord himself, Sauron, and the orcs. And then the final point, which is an impactful event or a battle, which of course for Lord of the Rings is the whole idea of the One Ring pretty much distorting the whole reality of Middle-earth and controlling the humans and all the other beings. I don't know specifically if the elves were tricked or the dwarves were tricked, but I'm guessing the humans were the more important aspect of that condition and the evil of that One Ring. Well, we got some nations being burned down, got some villages being burned down, got some people running away in danger of the evil of the orcs and the control of the arrogant and dumb humans. But yeah, the whole idea of humans coming together alongside the elves, which is kind of surprising, but dwarves weren't also there. I guess maybe they didn't want to join alongside, and there's probably some risk alongside of it or some sort of a problem they had with the elves, you know? But yeah, so you had the war itself between the humans and with the elves against the forces of darkness, the orcs and Sauron. And it also causes a understanding of the scale and the dynamics of the two forces of nature, the good and evil. And also some gray here and there. With Tolkien's storytelling and his amazing structure and foundation of his stories, it properly fulfills the desires of all the audience alongside the reasons why I want to be explaining right now. I want to make the whole thing very quick and simple for you guys to understand. First of all, world building. So basically what it does, it showcases the actual scale and the tone of the world. So beforehand, before the ring was created by Sauron, it was a magical world. After, it was a dark and evil world, created by, of course, the dark energy of Sauron and his forces. Alongside the scale of it, both the combination of the two armies, the elves and humans with thousands of forces, and the orcs and so on with also thousands of forces, but also the final battle between the small portion of army and the king and king's son against Sauron, where you can see Sauron just like bashing characters away, making them fly, the magical power he possesses. All of that just builds on the scale of it. And I forgot to add on the idea of the whole map being flamed out or whatever, destroyed, whatever you call it. And then Sauron beforehand using that ring to change the whole pretty much brain of humans and the elves and dwarves, whoever you think actually got control the most. I don't know specifically, but the humans specifically though, we're the ones that changed the whole structure of the politics, the warfare, the teachings, the education, everything like that, because the king's having this sort of connection to Sauron and the adaptation of the evil and the darkness into their society and changing the whole future and progress that they have made so far, creating the whole change in the conflict and the main point of the story. For the structure, second point was it's very important for the audience to kind of feel fulfilled by the journey of the main character or journey through the conflict. Of course, we have the introduction of the conflict, we have the build-up, and then the final conclusion. But we need to understand the proper, concrete timeline of how the character adapts to the situation, how the character grows as an individual, or grows as its power gets better, you know? But like, in general, we need to a full-on showcase of the main character and its adaptation of the world itself, the interaction to the surroundings and everything like that, which is what makes a story compelling, makes characters compelling, makes situations like interesting, makes conflicts interesting too, and generalizes the whole idea of creating a good structure for your story. Third one are two hooks. First one for just the beginning portion of the series. Second one for the complete conclusion of the series. Why this is important? This is actually going to be brief. I'll be real with you, okay? It just needs to engage the audience towards the whole portion of the series. What I mean by that is that right now, of course, we have brainwash and stuff like that and shorts and TikTok, whatever, to keep attention span very low. Beforehand, we kind of just needed we need a reason to watch the second movie. We need a reason to watch them. Even if it's good, we need some sort of conclusion for a first story, conclusion for a second story, conclusion for a third story, which is going to be tough, of course. Sometimes it won't make sense. Sometimes first story doesn't have a proper conclusion, second story might not have a proper conclusion like that. But like, we need something to build towards. Because the first one, of course, was the whole idea of not getting tricked by the ring and escaping the orc army. That brings tension to the story. That brings something to get excited about, to get scared, to get in the moment, feel it, The second one is, of course, destroying the ring itself. We have the whole story as general to bring the ring to Mount Doom and throw it into the lava and make it so that we get destruction of all the dark forces, Sauron himself, and actually bring some sort of light to humanity. We kind of feel more proud of the main character, the more tension, the more conflict he feels. And just as an individual, you understand people that are going through tough time and you kind of just feel for them, You feel their moment, you feel their bad parts, you feel the good parts of the story, and it just all becomes one single structure that full on showcases the whole character's identity and the experience in general. For the character, or the 4 points, the there's not really much to talk about. But of course, we have the whole personality, the ideology of the characters at the beginning, what the races. We have the fear, the intelligent elves. We have the craftsmen of the dwarves. And then we, of course, have the arrogance of humans. In general, it's just the idea of the audience to get inspired by a certain character that you feel like you're living through their journey, or you want to go through the journey that they have lived through. And also some relatability. Some characters you might feel like, oh, maybe this weak dude or weak woman is actually something I feel relatable to, or this powerful, strong dude who's confident in himself, everything. And maybe you feel like that's you. That's not me, of course, but like you get a point here and there. That's pretty much all for the characters. For the fifth one and the final point, it's the impactful event or battle. So in this case, the whole and the only reason why this is a thing is that just to excite people, just to excite the audience, keep them wanting to check out more of the series, and have something there that just, pushes you a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. It's a lot of lore dump, of course, but that lore dump is properly structured and properly given to you that you don't feel like it's overwhelming. You feel it's a perfect amount. You just keep going on because afterwards the story slows down a lot. And so this exciting portion is what keeps the audience wanting to read and check out more, depending if you're, I don't know if the book version you guys are checking out or the movies, but like the first portion is something that just wants more information, wants more ideas, wants more of the world building, the structure, the characters, the tension, the conflict, everything the audience wants is just shown there. And then you slowly build up and work towards the conclusion of all the ideas that were brought up in the first part. Shit, that was way too much. Well, see you guys later. Hope you guys have a great day. Enjoy your day. Don't give up. Work hard. You'll get there eventually. This is probably going to be raw. The first part is going to be the explanation of what's happening in the introduction, and then next portion is just my own explanation, my own ideas brought up to this. But yeah, don't see you guys later. Bye bye.